Here, I have with me three extremely impressive women to talk about the value of diversity on corporate boards. So I'm going to just do a brief summary of everyone's bios. Unfortunately, if I read everyone's bios here, they're all very impressive, but we didn't take up the whole time that we have set aside for this panel. So to my immediate right, we have Roberta Phillips, who is the Executive Director of the Center for Women in Business at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The Center for Women in Business is an initiative that empowers women at all levels to advance in the business world by increasing opportunities for women to serve on corporate boards and in the C-suite, and does a lot of other things. And then to my immediate left is Mecca Santana, who is the Chief Diversity Officer for the state of New York. She was appointed to that position in September of 2013. She is a very important and impressive person, worked for the Department of Education, also was Senior Assistant Counsel for the State Commission of Investigation, and most importantly, like me, was raised in Syracuse, New York. That's right. Upstate New York. And, sorry. On my far left is Nancy Hernandez, Deputy Comptroller, the Division of Diversity Programs. She was appointed to this position by Comptroller DiNapoli, who I just served on a panel with this morning, in April of 2012. She oversees the State Comptroller's Office of the Affirmative Action, Diversity Management, and Equal Employment Opportunity Programs. So what we're going to do is I am going to have each panelist do a presentation, maybe 10-15 minutes, and then we will open it up for Q&A. So we're going to start with, and I know it's a little confusing because there's a workshop on women only next door. This is more broadly diversity, but we're going to start with Roberta's presentation on women. So, you know, people can hear all different perspectives, but it is, the panel is on women and diversity in general and the value of including them in corporate leadership and on corporate boards. So with that, I will turn it over to Roberta. Do you want the microphone up there?
I think I can speak loud enough. I wasn't born in Syracuse, but northern New Jersey is close enough, and I did do a little bit of time in Cortland, New York. So I love New York State. I want to thank Heather and Sandra and Rita for inviting me here today to tell you a little bit more about what the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation is doing to help women advance in the workforce. So I think we can all agree that there's a lot of mixed messages today when it comes to women in the workforce. Do we lean in? Do we opt out? Do we jump sideways? There's so many different facts out there that supports the quest too. Some women say that we can have it all, and then there's others that say we can't. But while women are accomplishing more than ever, there just seems to be some disparity into how far they could actually go to get ahead. So what we know is since the early cultural shift in the 70s, women's opportunities have become more wide open. Long gone are the days when women just have a few traditional fields to choose from. We know that women are graduating, getting bachelor's degrees at 57%. They're getting 60% of masters and 52% of doctorates. A recent study by the Pew Research Center shows that 40% of the breadwinners of families now are women. And that's up from 11% in 1960. And for Latinas, 4 in 10 working wives are now the primary breadwinner of the household. That number has doubled since 1975. Think about that. Today, women make up 50% of our workforce, and we are the ones who control the household wealth. About 80% of women control where the money gets spent. Those numbers are only going to continue to increase. I welcome the few brave men that are next to grab the seat right up front. So Tamara Lundgren is the CEO of Schnitzer Steel. She also happens to be the second chair of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and that's in our 102-year history. She spoke at our second annual summit And she encourages the business community to embrace the growing role of women and for women themselves to embrace this new change.
I think it's terrific that the Chamber has a Center for Women in Business. I think one of the most important things that we can do as a country is to further encourage women to talk the talk of economic leadership. You know, women have, I believe, Joanna Barsh has pointed out, over 53% of entry-level professionals are women, and getting women to be a bigger part of the economic agenda, I think is very important for the country.
But despite some recent high-profile additions to the C-suite, like Mary Barr of GM, women's leadership, the numbers haven't really changed. We hold 14.6 of executive officer positions. That number's been pretty steady for the last 4 years. 16.9% of board seats, that number has virtually remained unchanged for the last 8 years. Latinas, they hold 4.4% of board seats. That number is actually down. It used to be 4.9% in 2012 and in 2001. If you're a woman of color, that number has remained at an unacceptably low rate of 3.2%. So clearly this is not for any kind of lack of effort, education, or accomplishment. So why then, if women are working harder than ever and achieving more, does the upward rank to that highest path of leadership remain so narrow? Well, there are no easy answers or solutions. What we know is that women, for some reason, haven't gotten the guidance, the experience, or the opportunities that they need to advance. And this is where the business community comes in. We need the business community to take the lead and help women with their professional advancement, not just because it's the right thing for business or the right thing for women, it's because it's vital to our economy. So it's with this backdrop that the United States Chamber of Commerce started our Center for Women in Business in March of 2012, and you can see we were founded by a man. Our president envisions a center that would lead the debate with fresh ideas, research, and real resources for women in the workforce. And our goal at the center is really twofold. First, it's to help the United States fully leverage the potential of all of its participants, and half of that is women. And second, it's to help women themselves as they seek to fulfill their personal and their professional aspirations. And those aspirations can be anything, whether you're just starting out in the workforce, raising or climbing the ranks within your organization, starting the small business of your dreams, or aspiring to serve on a corporate board. As we work towards those goals, what we've done is worked on identifying the barriers to advancement and helping women understand best practices to overcome all the obstacles that they face. In one of our most significant research pieces, Advancing Women to the Top, which you all should have a copy of on your chair, and right up front. So what we did is we looked at the best practices of 12 Fortune 1000 companies with McKinsey & Company, who was our research partner. Now, the good news is, as we learned in the study, is that the challenge isn't intractable. There's many companies that are already doing great things to help women advance. And the report itself is intended to be a practical guide. And our hope is that each of you will read it very carefully and then think about how you might apply some of its findings to your own situation or your own business setting. So now let me share with you some of the highlights of the report. To put together the study, our researchers identified Fortune 1000 companies that were good at promoting women into management, C-suite, and board-level positions. We zeroed in on companies that have been doing well for quite some time in the number of percentage of women on the board already or on the top team. The McKinsey researchers interviewed top executives from these companies and pretty much just asked them how they're doing it. And it was through these discussions that 6 common themes emerged. First, we learned that some companies have more advantages than other companies. Think of retail and healthcare. Those are industries that women naturally gravitate to, so there's an advantage. The second is that the larger the size of the top team, the more opportunity there is for a woman to get to the top. And third, if you already have a woman at the top, that's a natural indicator that people will look up to that woman, and that's another advantage. So we need companies to leverage these advantages and use them to develop their top talent. But our studies also showed that companies that tend to attract fewer women can overcome those barriers as well. The key is to be looking for these innovative women and then fostering their development. And these companies can also hang on to women through every stage of their pipeline and not let them go because they get frustrated. We all know that women gravitate in large numbers when they're first starting out, and then there's a drop-off. And sometimes these companies just aren't looking out for these women and plucking them and saying, hey, stay, we can make an accommodation for you. The second insight that we found was that gender diversity is personal for the CEO in companies where women are successful. It seems that their personal experiences or their family lives have given them some sense of value, something's left a strong impression on them. The CEO of Aetna, Mark Bertolini, explained how he was raised by all women, and then he went into the healthcare field, which tends to be dominated by women. And he said that he was attracted to women who were leaders and did critical work in their field. Campbell's has a very active women's network. Their CEO, Denise Morrison, sits down and actually meets with the high-level women at Campbell's and talks about how they can make their next step. She also recently launched an accelerator program called the Campbell Boot Camp to help bring up the younger women within Campbell, to let them know that there's a path for them. Steelcase President and CEO Jim Hackett also speaks about gender diversity in our report. So when you're rallying an organization around transformational change such as this, leaders can bring a passion that often goes beyond logic or economics. And this could be a powerful way for them to show that they're invested in a broad change. Brian Rogers, the chairman of T. Rowe Price, has been a champion for women throughout his entire career. And he's going to tell you now how he leads by example.
I think the most important leadership lesson for me is to lead by example. So in the context of what I've done throughout my career, you have to be an expert at doing it yourself, and then others will follow you. If you just sit in a corner office and issue edicts, nobody will ever follow. But there's a little bit of a military analogy here. If you're out in front of the troops will respect that, they'll appreciate that, and that's an important leadership tactic and strategy, I believe.
So we learned that through our research, companies that are better at that advancing women are also values-focused and community-driven. In the next clip that I'm going to show you, Jim Turley discusses how fostering a culture of workplace satisfaction helped Ernst & Young attract the best and the brightest.
Well, at Ernst & Young, we realized early on that a lot of people talked about diversity and inclusiveness, D&I, and they almost interchanged the words. We had an advisor who said to us, think about them separately. Diversity is about the mix of your people. An inclusive culture is about how you make that mix work and work effectively. So we put in place programs around attracting and promoting people. We put in place programs around the culture, the inclusive culture. We put in place programs around flexibility for all of our people. We put in programs to watch the careers of our young women and ethnic minorities. We absolutely put in place programs to help all of us get in touch with our unconscious biases. And so a number of different things. Then very importantly, we are an accounting-based firm. We measure this. We measure things, we hold people accountable.
Now, isn't that a great way to just talk about diversity and inclusion? We call Jim a guy who gets it. He is. So it's good business practice regardless of the motivation when you look at it in these terms, and it's an effective way to help women advance. Let's talk about Wells Fargo for a minute. They started on their gender diversity policy back when they formed this committee called, it was the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. And it was that parents could take sick leave when their child was sick, that they could stay home. And as obvious as a policy that might sound today, There's a lot of companies that still don't have that. So when you're putting humans at the center and paying attention to the special needs of some people, that's also an effective way to retain and to help people. And I should say that this is not just for women. As they make these policies more available for men, it helps everybody. It helps the entire family. So the best performing companies treat these situations case by case, and they recognize that individual attention to these cases creates a lifetime of loyalty for the employee and the company. So closely related to that, our fourth insight is that HR resource departments need to give their employees the tools and the systems that they need to advance. And that might include talent management, individual development plans, charter career paths, or even succession planning. And it also includes creating that flexible culture where parents feel that they can personalize and their professional lives and harmonize everything. Every company is different, but any company that wants to strengthen gender diversity needs to look at their HR initiatives and, as Jen Turley said, measure them and then take a systematic approach. The best performing HR functions focus only on just a few things. They don't try and cover the entire spectrum at once. Another great example is Kelly Services. They have a forum that's chaired and championed by their CEO, Carl Hampton. And what this board does is it reviews upcoming openings within Kelly Services, and then they look around the company and identify people that might not naturally be in line for a promotion, and they get them onto these review slates. And that just shows that they're not going to just promote the next person in line, they're actually looking around the company. And then the HR people reach out and talk to these women individually and let them know that they do have a shot at something they never would consider themselves ready for. So none of this is rocket science. It takes focus and it takes time. Because advancing women is a long-term priority, the best performers don't cut corners. They put the time in today for results down the road. So our next insight is that the presence of women on corporate boards is essential. Robert Pugh, the chairman and CEO of Steelcase, talked to us about how board diversity of all kinds, including gender, ethnicity, race, helped make Steelcase a stronger company because it helped him meet the needs of his global and diverse customer base. So any company that wants to develop its high potential women should make a concerted effort to recruit more women to their boards. So interestingly enough, McKinsey and Catalyst Research have identified that having 3 or more women on your board shows a significant financial performance or gain for your company. So here's Joanna Barsh, who is our lead researcher on the project, talking about the importance of women on the board.
The board has an essential role to play. This is the first time we've done research at McKinsey on the role of the board, and what we found is that more women on the board really do help. And here's how it helps. They ask the question, where are the women? They go down several layers and they keep asking that question. And that encourages management to get serious about gender diversity.
So if you're doing all the things that we've talked about here, gender diversity will become part of your corporate culture. And those women will serve as role models, mentors, and champions for continued diversity. So what you get is a cycle of success. We found out that the best performers had one thing in common, and that's that they've been at this for quite some time. They have a dedication. They stay the course through good times and through bad times. These companies have been at it for more than just a few years. A place for them, a great environment. The executives that were interviewed told our researchers that it takes more than 2 to 3 years to get serious, and then longer than that to cause the organization to shift permanently. McKinsey talks about these companies as aspiring to have a fat pipe, and what they mean by that is having the same number of women enter into the workforce, move through and thrive at every level, including up to the top. Maggie Wildrotter is the chair and CEO of Frontier Communications, which is a Fortune 1000 company. She understands not just the importance of appointing women to top positions, but also moving them up from the lower levels of the company.
Female CEOs of major corporations start within the organization early on. It's about pipeline. It's about making sure that there's promotions for women within that organization, that great talent, women talent is brought into organizations throughout their career path. And it also starts with the tone at the top. I know as a woman CEO of a Fortune 500 company, what's important to me is that I have great talent, both men and women, that are helping our company move forward. And by taking that perspective, today in our senior leaders, the top 7 people in our company, 4 are women. And if you look at our field organization, out of the top 4 leaders, 50% are women. And when I got to the company 10 years ago, I was the only woman executive in the company. So it really does start with the CEO making a conscious decision that you will move the business forward. And I can also tell you that our shareholder return is better than anybody in our business today.
Just a side note on Maggie, for those of you who don't know, she's the sister of Denise Morrison, who's the CEO of Campbell, so there are 2 sisters in the Fortune 1000. It used to be 500, but Frontier just dropped into 1,000. Anyway, something to shoot for. So again, I hope that you'll read the best practices in the report and think about how to apply them to your situation. The highlighted corporation in the report can be powerful models for the broader business community. It's easy to make the mistake of taking a narrow view of this challenge, but there's many intertwined strands. Yes, it's a business issue. It's simply good business to foster both halves of the workforce and benefit from the immeasurable talent that women bring to the table. Yes, it's a women's issue. The keystone of American society is rewarding hard work and merit and inclusiveness. It's also a family issue. Changes in our workforce will continue to shape and reshape the traditional roles in the household. But at the end of the day, it's an economic issue. In order for the United States to grow and compete in the global 21st century, the American workforce needs to leverage the talent of all of its people. Women have the entrepreneurial spirit that's essential to our long-term competitive growth. Jim Murin, the head of CEO and head of MGM Resorts, drives this point home.
In anything in corporate America, you have to make a business case of why it would be a good idea to hire anyone, women, men, in any type of background. And I can make a very good business case why it's smart business and it's profitable business to hire more women and promote them into the workplace. My advice would be to look at the facts. At my company, I have 63,000 employees, 60+% of them are women. We know in the hospitality business that women make most of the decisions as to where they go, what they do on vacation, how they book their conventions or their leisure travel. And I want to attract the type of loyalty to all of our customers that will increase my market share in the principal markets in which I operate, and focusing on advancing women in the workplace, putting women into the boardrooms is a great way to improve my business, to make more money.
Smart guy. We call Jim another man who gets it. He actually told us, he shared with us a story about how he started out on Wall Street and he met his wife sitting next to her. They were both traders. And it bothered him because he kept getting promoted and he said she was smarter than he was. So, and he says she still is smarter than he is today. But it bothered him. So then when he got to Las Vegas and he saw that the people coming to his properties didn't look like the people that were working there, he decided to make some changes. And as you can see, he's become a very successful person and he still cares a lot about these issues. So I'm getting in there. We're almost done. A few more numbers. Women make up almost 30% of small businesses today. We have nearly 12 million businesses and we contribute nearly 1.4 trillion to the economy. Latinas are growing at a very high rate. The share of the female population in the workforce is now 16.4%, and it's expected to reach 25.7% by 2050. Those are some serious numbers. Clearly, women are making an impact. But the business community can't afford to ignore the disparity in executive leadership. To do so is to pass up many of our best and our brightest. We can and we must do more to leverage the education, the skills, the ideas, and the innovations that women bring to the table at the very highest levels. So the center invites all of you to work with us to help move this forward. Thank you.
Over to Mecca, I just want to reference a couple points that I think are very important. In particular, diversity on corporate boards and diversity in high-level governance in corporations. There's this concept that as an idea that it's just something nice and philanthropic for organizations to do, when in fact, there are studies as recently as 2009, 2010 showing that companies that had broader diversity on their boards, not just women, but racial and ethnic minorities on their board, outperformed financially companies that didn't. And one of the reasons for this, if you think about it, if everyone looks the same in a room and has the same background in a room, they're probably going to agree on a lot of things. So I have a little example that has nothing to do with women or race, but gives you an idea of what is the value of diverse backgrounds. So this is a true story. In Kenya, there was a large hotel chain that wanted to put a flagship hotel in a very populated downtown area. Now the Kenya power grid is very unreliable. So they put it out to bid, and one of the requirements would be that the hotel is not dependent on HVAC systems. And if you can imagine, in Kenya the temperature goes up to high 90s during the day, sometimes higher, and gets very cold at night. And for almost a year, no one could come up with a plan that could meet the bare minimum requirements of this, where it would be tolerable to stay in this hotel. And one of the bidding companies actually was about to give up. Their head architect was at a cocktail party for a university. His wife is a professor, and ends up talking to a guy who is an entomologist, a bug guy. And he's explaining this problem to him, and the guy says, well, are there termites in Kenya? And he said, yeah. He says, go look at how they build their hives, because it could be 100 degrees out or 30 degrees out, but it's always 72 degrees in the middle of a termite hill. So he did. And because he talked to someone who was outside of his circle and outside of his normal everyday experience, he won the bid because he designed the hotel with air tunnels and a system that was based off of how termites construct their termite hills. But it just goes to show you, it was the diversity of who he was having a conversation with, and the same is true of corporate boards. Having a diversity of backgrounds and a diversity of ideas and information financially benefits the corporation itself. So that's my speech, and now I'm going to turn it over to Mecca to talk about the state diversity.
Well, look, you've said it all. I think maybe that was the crux of what I was going to focus on.
You were going to talk about termites?
all day long. No, I mean, for the state, the considerations are a little different, and I'll touch upon those, but the approach is still the same. Anyone who's in this D&I space understands, like was previously said, no one does this work because it's the right thing to do anymore. If it was the right thing to do, companies would have been doing it all along. If it was the right thing to do, we wouldn't still have discrimination in the workplace, etc. So we've moved beyond this altruistic, diversity is good for us, to real benefits. How does diversity drive performance? How does diversity make you a better manager? How does diversity ensure a better outcome, help you sell more Coca-Cola or beer or whatever it is? And when you make that argument, it tends to resonate, and it has a certain level of sustainability. And so for us in the state, I tell people, while we don't have a can of Coke or a product, we are service-oriented. We are a service delivery kind of institution. And so for us, our boards, our commissions, are all about offering services. And a lot of people don't understand how boards and commissions really work in New York State and kind of the power that they wield. We have over 80 different boards, commissions, and authorities in New York State. We actually have Christina Hernandez, who sits on one of our boards, our parole board, here in the audience. Our boards really do set policy, and so they are very important institutions. And diversity is something that is lacking in our board, just like diversity is something that's lacking when it comes to workforce considerations. And so I came on board last year with really, the mandate to create some type of strategic vision for how we were going to approach this. And again, the state has several obstacles that aren't existing in the private sector. The first is that, it's very prestigious for most people to sit on corporate boards. If you were invited to sit on the board of Microsoft or Coca-Cola, you would jump at the opportunity. To sit on the board of the Erie Canal Waterway, maybe not so much. The obscure, Niagara Falls board. I've got a couple, the Adirondack Park Agency, the Freshwater Wetlands Board, not so much. So that's always going to be an issue. And so when I came in, I kind of said, okay, let's figure out how to do a couple of things and do them well. The first is to create relationships where we can develop diverse pipelines. Like everything else, whether you're talking about workforce recruitment or recruitment for boards and commissions, it's about who you know. The reality is many people still end up where they are, whether it's employment-based or landing on a board or commission based upon a relationship, based upon who they know. And so when I came in, what I kept hearing when we looked at kind of boards and commissions was, well, we've got this board, Mecca, we don't have much diversity reflected because we don't know anyone. We don't know who we could possibly put on the board. And I said, well, I know people. And I'll get to know more people because I'm going to go throughout the state on a road show and create relationships. And that's exactly what I did. I went to Buffalo. I went to Rochester crew here. I went to Syracuse, my hometown. And you build those relationships with people and you promote what the state has to offer through board or commission service. And you demystify it for people. And that way you have a network. When you have a board in Rochester, Syracuse, Buffalo, you say, well, let me reach out to my contacts there and see if there's some interest in service. And so that was one way I started looking at it. What we also did was really, as opposed to just one-on-one looking at individual placements, we said, let's really create a protocol and a system for doing this. And so I sit on a committee of people at the chamber where we look at our boards and commissions. We look at each one individually, we say, what are the placements, what are the vacancies we have, who is currently serving on a board or commission. Now, who is currently serving, and serving I put in air quotes, because we have service, and then we have people who have been appointed who haven't been active for a very long time. That's just the reality. And so we need to find those people who are actively representing on a board or commission, have some active contribution to make. Once we started doing that, as I said, we did the outreach, not just through my roadshow, but I started looking at different institutions, different organizations where we can have pipeline development. So one was reaching out to the Council for Urban Professionals. This is an organization that takes diverse candidates, very high profile, from mostly the tri-state area, and looks to build relationships with them. I said, well, there's a perfect kind of body of candidates for our boards and commissions. And so we started working with them, and so the Council for Urban Professionals now offers a seminar to their constituents, thousands of talented, diverse professionals, where they teach them about board and commission service for the state. And so we come in and say, here's what you would need to know. Here's what the vetting process looks like, et cetera. So people are kind of engaged, and then they funnel those applicants to us. Here's another avenue that no one had considered previously, but it just so happened that I met an individual named Ruth Sandoval from the National Hispanic Business Group. This is an institution, their members are very well funded, and so I went to an event they had at Cipriani, very nice event, and I said, Ruth, we've got to develop some collaboration, some active mutual benefit. She said, well, Mecca, listen, the members of my group aren't interested in working for the state. These are millionaires. The members of my group aren't interested in your minority and women-owned business programs because they make too much money for those programs. So where is there an avenue for collaboration for us? And I immediately said, how about service on our boards or commissions? And she said that is something they would be interested in because it builds up their cachet. It's something else for them to add to kind of their resume and their philanthropy and everything else. And so we developed a pipeline that way. It's about kind of looking at avenues where you hadn't necessarily treaded before to find people who are willing to serve. And also, because there are several obstacles, and this is part of the spiel that I give when I try to entice people to state service, there are several obstacles that I found present problems for people, but they're not something that we can't overcome. The first is geography. Again, New York State is a big state. Too much of the focus has always been, from my perspective, New York City centered. We've looked at New York City for talent for employment. We've looked almost exclusively at New York City for talent for boards and commissions. Well, the reality is you have a better chance of enticing someone to serve on a board or commission in Albany if they're already from upstate New York, if they live in Buffalo or Rochester, as opposed to Brooklyn or Queens. And so I have said, let's look at geography and try to be a little more strategic with regard to where we're sourcing our candidates for board and commission service. The other is the vetting process. And it was interesting. I had a conversation with a woman who represented an Asian American Bar Association. And she said, Mecca, you have to understand, from an intellectual and cultural perspective, Asian Americans aren't inclined to want to turn over all of this information about their finances and their taxes. I say, I don't think anyone is really inclined to offer that much information about their financial situation. But unless you're able to acknowledge, unless you have some cultural competence where you understand that that presents an obstacle, you're never going to tap into that community. And so we figured out, in spite of that, then how can we still forge those relationships so we have more Asians coming and serving on our boards and commissions. So the vetting process was very real. There's a certain political nature with board and commission appointments. That's the nature of the beast. Some of our boards and commissions require Senate confirmation. Some of them, elected officials kind of get involved. So again, it's the ability to kind of tell people about how the process works, so they're then interested in kind of coming on board. The last, and this is really something that, there is no excuse for, is, well, second to last, is timeliness. Some people say, well, Mecca, I don't have time. I don't have time to serve. I don't have, especially for the state, who has time to do that? My philosophy has always been, at the point where you're someone who's being asked to serve on a board, I'm sorry, I'm distracted by the conversation.
I'm sorry, can you please take the conversation outside? Thanks.
Okay. At a time when any of us, if you're someone who is being asked to serve on something like a board or commission, you've attained a level of professional success, personal success, you're held up as a role model to a certain degree. And the reality is, it's that old biblical saying, to much whom is given, much is required. And so at some point, giving back, for the sake of giving back, has to be a part of how we live our lives as well. And so to hear that no one has time to serve, et cetera, it's just not an excuse that's going to fly. Especially when, again, so much of how policy is developed and what happens throughout New York State happens in our boards and commissions. The CUNY education system, the SUNY education system, those are boards. So you're talking about the entire academic kind of institutions for the state of New York. We have to have diversity reflected there because many of our diverse students go to those institutions. I'm a product of the SUNY system. I'd like to know that those individuals who are making decisions look like me. And it's not just a matter of race and gender. It's, as we heard, everything. It's different perspectives. Because you don't want to have the mindset that the Latino community in whole, in mass, is homogenous. Because the Latino issues and considerations for upstate New York are very different from the Latino considerations in downstate New York. And so you want to get all of those various perspectives, all of the dynamics associated with diversity have to play an integral role in something like board and commission service. And so for us, like I said, that's kind of the strategy that we're employing. I found that it's working well so far. The good thing is we're post-election, so there are going to be many more vacancies, and we're going to be doing many more placements. But the state has to take an active role. We cannot be passive. We cannot wait for people to come to us. We have to go out. We have to forge those relationships. We have to make the case for why this is important and sell ourselves and entice people to join us and help us when it comes to setting policy for the entire state. As diverse as New York is, we have an obligation to do that. And so that's what I do kind of on a daily basis, and I'm interested in hearing from Nancy and then taking some questions.
I'm exhausted. There's so much information. It's wonderful. I want to thank you. Oh, I don't. Do I need it? After, when you yell at children so much, your voice just happens to develop. But thank you. I've learned so much just sitting here next to the three of you. It's been wonderful. And I've learned a few things here too. I think we can always learn. When we had a pre-meeting and we were trying to discuss, who would do what, and certainly you did a fabulous presentation. I had the experience of working both in public and private sector, And of course, when you work in both public and private, you're given such great opportunity to be offered many opportunities and experience different things. And so we kind of said, well, actually, it was Mecca's idea, who said, you know, Nancy, talk a little bit what you've experienced, because sometimes people need to share their story. And then kind of, you know, the perspective of the controller as well. So that was pretty cool. So I'll get to tell you a little bit about, you know, my experiences. Being that I had been an elected official as well as a business owner, those were the opportunities that presented themselves. I had served on a private sector board as well as a public. And their makeup was kind of different, and then the outcome of success was interpreted differently. So it was a unique experience. The public board, it was with a state agency, but we had a board that handled code enforcements and anything regarding police and fire. So you can imagine what kind of gender is involved there. Okay. Our board consisted of 17 members, and of the 17 members, there were at the time 2 white females, 1 black male, a Hispanic female, and the rest were white males. Okay, because of the element of the program, we understood. So if you look at those numbers, and in the field that if I can throw your name, Mecca, and myself in, when you do statistics and you're looking at stats, you know, it's 24% protected class. So you're like, okay, 24%, it may not be that bad. But in this realm of what we're discussing, it's not too good. And what happened with this 24% is that no matter how we voted, it got nowhere. And it was very difficult because one of you mentioned, if you're the same, you think the same, you're going to vote the same. The majority always ruled. So it was hard to make an impact, and as time went on, I had to then step down from that board, and it wasn't until I was invited to this forum and participate, I said, let me see what's going on. Well, unfortunately, that board is now 17 white males, so they stepped backward. So it's really sad. In the private sector, however, even though it started a little bit that way, but it was 18, 19 years ago, it was interesting. I was the only Latina in a woman organization. So we were all women, so that's good. But I was the only minority. I was the only Latina. And 18 years ago, okay, there was a frame of thinking, and it was in sales, so it was a business organization. And interesting enough, they were older, much mature and seasoned group. So again, there's a way of thinking and running and the business and how to do things. So even though myself and a few others, we were young and thought the same, we were getting nowhere. And then of course I was bringing the culture aspect about it and saying there's a community that is untapped. That's untapped money. Why aren't we going there? I think there was obviously a lack of knowledge of culture sensitivity, feeling really is their money. And they just ignored it. They were very comfortable, and I can respect that, but you also have to get out of your comfort and explore. Through time, what was so great is with changes in sales and people coming and going, that board did change for the better. We did get more diverse people and a different age group, and today it's a very successful women's realtors group, and it's doing fabulous. And of course, I'm speaking on the Capital Region because that's where I'm from right now, and they're doing excellent. Again, I also had to step down from that, but that was okay because it's interesting to get how they both started the same, but one went one way and one went another. And depending on your experience, if you're not used to that, I can see where it could be very discouraging, especially if we're trying to encourage and serve as role models or mentor the next generation, or even your own peer. If you don't have that experience and know to hang in there, it can be discouraging. And unfortunately for our people of color, we'll just, you know what, next, or you just give up. And that's the struggle that I see. We don't see enough of people of color. We don't see diversity. We don't see enough women. You're absolutely right. But I think it's also, if you're going to go into an area that's not as welcoming, you have to go in there and fight the fight and be assertive, because times are changing, especially within ethnic community ourselves. So I think overall, when you see the message that we're trying to deliver here is, board diversity, it's a good thing. And adding even a single woman to a board makes a difference and can improve corporate governance. There's enough studies out there, and you just shared with us so much, that proves that diversity on the board is very positive. And it impacts the bottom line. And I think we're trying to prove that. There is a bottom line. And if you do have diversity, we will see great results. Corporations agree that diversity improves the quality of board discussions and decision-making, which contributes to organizational and financial performance. So once again, as many of us are saying. Well then, why is there still underrepresentation? And I know that question was also posed, especially in the Fortune 100, 500, and we saw a few there companies. I've heard and I've seen periodically where they say, well, we just can't find the talent. I think even in regular jobs, wouldn't you say that?
Always.
we can't find the talent. Well, really, how much searching are you actually doing? And, they need specific skills and experiences. So there's one excuse after another. Or, we're quite comfortable the way things are. Why change it? But, we can't. We can't accept that. And again, you have to continue fighting and moving your agenda forward. What are you to do? So certainly you start looking at an avenue, you start thinking yourself as a candidate, what do I need to do? And if not, you partner with people who are already on boards and say, how did you do it? We have to get out of that comfort zone and reach out and really get connected. But when you look yourself, there are instances, and I can share with you from an article that one of our we're in New York, and we certainly look to other states, and when I say we, at the Comptroller's office, there is California, which is always New York and California, the two competitors. The California Public Employees Retirement System and the California State Teachers Retirement System, they're the largest retirement system out west, and they have a value of approximately $187 billion. Well, they created the Diverse Director Data Source. They saw a problem. They came across this issue, and they went ahead and developed this program, which is a data collecting information source that allows potential candidates, anyone interested in a board, to nominate themselves, and you provide information that's quite extensive. And this data is free for the candidate as well as companies who are searching. So when people say, well, can't find candidates, you have to look for avenues. Just like if you're going for a job, you may go to Kelly Services or things of that nature. You have to look for these avenues. So I found that quite interesting that here across the country, here's a state proactive, acknowledging these incidents, this situation, and went ahead and developed something. Also, the California State Teachers Retirement System are founders of an initiative that calls for the companies to seek and place women on boards of directors. They have sent out, they did an initiative about saying, you know what, we've had enough, let's go ahead and contact businesses, companies, and tell them how it's important to have on the board diversity, women specifically, and the differences it made. So they came up and thought, let's send out letters. Let's send out letters to these companies and see their reaction, but basically being advocates and insisting that they changed the corporate makeup, the corporate boards. Their goal is to have women hold 30% of board seats by the end of 2015. That's next year. And so far, because of these efforts, they have 17 companies who have appointed women to their boards of directors. So you may think, oh, 100 letters, 200 letters, but you'd be surprised. You'd never know who's going to receive it at the other end. We saw great examples of some men leaders who think differently, who are open. What if that one happens to be the CEO of that company, and what if they receive your letter? So we have to think outside the box. We have to do things that are not the norm and just go for it. Again, for ourselves, but for each other as a community. This letter has been sent out twice so far, because this was initiated 2 years ago, and signed by 75 signatories.
And of course, our New York State Comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, is one of those 75.
How are you? Thank you.
See, I should keep my glasses on. Okay, well, as State Comptroller and sole trustee, he oversees our Common Retirement Fund, which is the third largest, as you know now, of this country, with an estimated value of approximately, it fluctuates, I'd say right now about 180 billion. His primary responsibility, of course, is to the 1 million members, beneficiaries, and retirees of the retirement fund. Within our agency, we do have a division that pretty much manages the program and of the Common Retirement Fund. And their responsibility is the planning and implementing of the investment program that protects and enhances the long-term value of the Common Retirement Fund. But through this Common Retirement Fund, there's a corporate governance initiative where Comptroller DiNapoli stipulates that he will continue, and he stresses this and is a strong advocate, to fight for increased representation of women and minorities on corporate boards. He continues to urge companies within the portfolio to increase board diversity, including gender, as a means of increasing financial performance and generating long-term value for shareholders. The Comptroller's Office has filed shareholder proposals seeking board diversity, independence, and accountability with these companies. Now, due to these efforts that we've done, engagements and agreements have already resulted in 12 companies adding 8 diverse members to their boards of directors since 2012. And now in 2013, as we're getting those results, all 6 of 6 companies we filed proposals to also adopted diversity language in their nominating committee charters, cementing diversity as a factor in selecting directors. Again, you just never know. It's all about timing, and then these are the results. They may seem small, but every little bit counts, and that little bit will continue growing and so forth. He is so committed to women on boards that in his own agency, he has 40% women serving in the executive level, and nearly 60% of our agency workforce are women. Thank you. His advocacy and initiative speaks volumes on the issue of gender diversity on the board. I personally would like to encourage and instill interest in all of you to take an interest in being candidates on board. Again, getting out of comfort zone, talking to other individuals, and just try to get in there. And I love all the ones you listed. See, I would be one to go to those waterways. You start small. Everyone, you should never go big. Start small. Get your name out there. Repetition. If you got a good reputation, it just goes. So I think, you start that way, you get out there, and then you get recommended. All of a sudden, you'll be in 10 to 20 boards. Believe me, it happens, right? So that's really important. The bottom line, companies like to embrace gender diversity are better governed, better managed, and have better long-term growth prospects. And final, I'm going to quote, when women are at the table, the discussion is richer, the decision-making process is better, management is more innovative and collaborative, and the organization is stronger. And quite frankly, gender diversity has positive financial consequences. Thank you.
We could do a couple. We have, I think we have about 20 minutes for Q&A. Before we do that, I just wanted to make one comment, which is I am part of an organization in the Capital Region called FEW, the Forum for Executive Women, which actually spells few. And we did a panel about a year ago on how do we get more women on corporate boards. And so what I did is I called a couple of my members. My members include IBM and GE and Kodak, Verizon, and I've got quite a few of them, quite a few of my board members are women. So I called Linda Sanford of IBM and I said, hey Linda, I know you're on some other boards. How do they find people? What is the process? How, you know, what could we do to get people prepared to serve on corporate boards? And the most valuable thing that a corporation, these are compensated, by the way, for anyone who wonders why you'd want to be on the board of Pepsi, because they'll pay you a lot of money to do it. It's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility, but they also compensate their directors. And the bottom line is, more than anything else, experience is what they're looking for, board experience. So serving on a state board is exactly the kind of experience that a corporate board would be looking for in terms of what do you understand what it means to be on a board. So that volunteer service, which may sometimes seem thankless, and I can vouch for that because I've been on a few boards myself, the experience is something that will pay off in the long run. And so to the extent that anyone is interested, serve on a community board, serve on a state public authority board, or don't serve on the minimum wage board. I'm on it. I would recommend it. Just get yelled at for about 7 hours straight. But so I just wanted to throw that out there, that is probably the most valuable way to increase diversity in boards, is create a larger pool of applicants or people who are qualified. And you have to start small. You have to start with your local volunteering on a community board, understanding what a spreadsheet looks like, and I always put myself on the financial committee because I swear it's going to take me 100 years to understand that kind of accounting. But so with that, I'm going to open it up to questions, and I'll start here.
Hi, Lenny, CEO of the Bronx Chamber of Commerce. I realized a long time ago that diversity was an important thing, and the chamber is around 118 years old in the Bronx, and in the first 100 years of the history of the Bronx, I got a woman president-elected. And I must tell you, it was hard. It was very hard when I went to a man who was 98 years old who founded it, and I explained it to him. It took me a while to get it done, bringing him back to the board. I was only a volunteer at that time, but when I got it done, it did change. And one of the other things I realized, now I'm no longer a volunteer, became the CEO, I also put 5 women on my board. And what she just finished saying, when we sit at a board meeting, it's more understandable, more reasonable. When somebody on the other side of the table, may it be a man or a female, it becomes reasoning. And I've learned by sitting at this table of 12, common sense comes out of it. And it's always on the woman's side because they understand it and get it. So it's always been important. And another thing I've done, over the years, I programmed a thing called Women of Distinction, which ironically started 5 years ago at a Somos Futuro conference when I sat down for dinner with a couple of ladies who were elected ladies, and we started to talk, and I said, have we ever done anything like that? And they said, no. I said, I'm going to pioneer it. It's going on 7 years old. We do Women of Distinction. We give scholarships to women for the past 7 years. So it's important that what corporate America does also happens in the lower end of it, because it continues to do it. And this year, we're electing another woman to our board, so in the next 30 days. So I'm a firm believer in that. So you know what? My friend Caesar told me to stop in here. I stopped in. I'm really glad I did, because my wife doesn't believe anything I say. We don't even talk, but that's another story. But I believe that it gets accomplished. All my chairs of my committees are ladies. And when they report with a passion and to the point. And it's so important because I can't do it all. So it's important, and I really commend you ladies for doing what you've done. So thank you for doing that. I'm a firm believer in it.
You're next.
Thank you. A tip and a question. A tip, I collaborate with a woman out in California named Dr. Maria Hernandez that actually does trainings and seminars for Latinas to help them get prepared, to mentor them through that process of sort of putting themselves out there. So I would definitely like to pass that information along to you all. My question is on that, any thoughts that you'd like to share around specifically helping Latinas sort of get prepared with this idea? Because oftentimes the lack of talent and the lack of ability is the least of our concerns. A lot of times, it may be an issue of humility, of not, and then not feeling they have the tools to sort of market themselves and lobby, for lack of a better term, for these kind of opportunities. So any just thoughts that you'd like to share about that?
I'll chime in. People hear Santana, they assume I'm a Latina. I tell people I'm not. My husband was Puerto Rican. But with that being said, I have 2 Puerto Rican children. And so for my baby girl, and to address your point about how we get Latino women to kind of embrace this idea, it's an idea that we want young women of color to embrace across the spectrum and embrace early on. You know, from the time she was literally in diapers, my daughter has been kind of groomed to assert herself, to take on leadership roles and leadership potential. And I think it's something from a cultural perspective many women of color aren't raised to do. We're raised to believe that we can maybe play a supporting role to someone who is the leader, as opposed to being up front and out there. And so the more you take young women and instill in them from very early on that level of confidence, because like you said, it's not an education issue. Women outpace men with regard to academics. It's not an ability issue. I think some of it is an internalized confidence issue. You know, the ability to walk into a room and command an audience and own it and to believe in yourself and to be confident is something that we have to do a better job as women when it comes to that area. And that comes about by helping other women. You know, Nancy and I were just talking about that, building relationships, building our own networks, being support systems in areas where we weren't necessarily connected. That's how men have done it for centuries. Mm-hmm. Women have to employ that same level of strategy, and they have to start very, very early on.
I'll just add 2 more cents to that. And we have culture. And when we have culture, which is the way we were brought up, it's misunderstood as being weak. You're too submissive, you're too shy, no, it's because that's part of who we are. It doesn't mean we're not assertive, it doesn't mean we're not smart, it doesn't mean we can't figure it out. But that's where the more seasoned sisters, we're gonna need to kind of take some of these young ones and put them on, get them under our arms and say, come on, we're gonna do this together, because I was you so many years ago. And look where I am, but let me help you to make those years a little shorter. So we have to, I say sisters, brother, whatever. We all have to see our own, if you're targeting our own community, we understand it well, so we have to kind of think outside the box and encourage them and say, you can do this. In my time when I was a young lady back then, I had Aspida. Aspida was an organization that helped me so much because I was so introverted, so quiet, exactly. And when you're shy and you don't know and you have a little bit of lack of confidence because you were told, you stay quiet, you just stay introvert. But that organization helped me so much. So we have to kind of take that concept and do the same.
Let's see, we'll go here.
Hi, Hernandez, still feminist in the Bronx. I was startled by, I shouldn't be startled, but I was startled by the sobering numbers you were mentioning. And aside from what we're doing in New York, and you guys are doing it great, how do we incentivize these large companies, vis-a-vis, the United States Chamber of Commerce or otherwise, to get them to recruit young women from our schools and train them in the level that we can get them? How can we incentivize the companies to give, so we can create a path from the ground up?
It's a really good question. If I had the answer, it would be done today. What we try and do is promote the best practices and share these stories and get champions for change. These men that you saw today are champions, and we've been trying to grow that into a larger movement so that others will participate as well.
Is there any way, like the MWBE, the model of the MWBE, is there any way to incentivize it, maybe like a tax credit or something to these? I'm just trying to figure out a way, that if it can't be done naturally, that we can incentivize these companies to do it and find a way that maybe will affect their bottom line.
I think similar, just to clarify, you know, the MWBE program and the goal setting that you're talking about was as a result of something called a disparity study. So it's not an apples to apples comparison, but where I do think you can have an impact is something that Nancy talked about. It's leveraging the power of government, of the Comptroller's office, when interacting with these companies to say, okay, there's an expectation that you are going to focus on these issues. And as a result, then the companies focus on these issues and they generate results that, like Nancy just talked about. So I think you can, even in the absence of regulation, use the leverage of government to kind of achieve those goals.
I think it's calling them out. You call them out on it and say, listen, you gotta do more. Times are changing. We have a young generation coming up, still not prepared. We need to lead them. For us who are going to be aging in a few years, and it's not even that as an issue. It's a responsibility. You mentioned the chamber, and it's too bad Lenny left, because we could have put him right on the spot. Because one thing with many chambers, what are they about? Business, money. They have money. He can formulate an internship, and here you have members to the chamber and say, you know what? I appreciate your business. You're a member of this chamber. Why don't we give back to the community? Let me tell you how. And then you reach out to these young adults, whether seniors in high school or just the first freshman, sophomore years in college, to show them a way. Look, you think you like this industry? Let me connect you to some of the people who are in my chamber. I think it's a fabulous way of connecting school with businesses. We tend to always rely on government. You can't. We can't, well, we know that now. But the reality is, if the money is in the business industry and the businesses are out there, there's a lot of corporations doing well, reach out to them. I mean, that's one thing as a parent, we were told to do that where I'm from, where every now and then you go out, you know, you do it for fundraising, but then you go, you know what, huh? Is there something you could do and support the Little League? And how many times they go, yeah. So unless you ask, you don't know. So we have to do that and be assertive that way.
And I want to add on one thing, because let's make sure, I mean, people know, she represents the U.S. Chamber, which is the largest business association in the country. I represent the New York State Business Council, which is the state's largest business association. The reason I even suggested this panel was because I think the more that corporations and companies understand that their financial performance will improve with more diverse leadership, the bottom line is the ultimate driver. I mean, that's what capitalism is it's results driven. If the results are there, the change should happen. One of the problems is these are good positions. These are high-paying positions that people don't want to give up their board seats. But there will be a natural shift and a natural change. And so what we've done and what Roberta is doing is we are just trying to get that information out there so that our company, my members, understand that it will benefit them financially, that they're not doing someone a favor. This is good for them, it's good for business, it's good for the economy, and by the way, 2 out of 3 businesses created in the US are going to be created by a woman or a minority. So that is where the growth is going to come. They need to understand what the new markets look like, and the only way they're going to know is if they have those people included in their leadership.
And the other thing, I don't need the mic, they have terms. I mean, they're not there forever,
Right.
the boards. So if they're there for 7 years, 5 years, 10, because it may vary, and you're there and you're constantly involved and you're vocalizing and people are listening, it may be an opportunity when their time is up that you would be considered. So that's why you have to be very active and voice your concerns and just do what you can within the community.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm so glad I came to this, I'm sorry.
Okay, you start.
Because, it's been very, very interesting and very worthwhile. I just wanted to, and I agree with everything that you ladies have said. And I do believe that diversity makes it, whatever you're doing, it'll make it richer, it'll make it much more, it fits more the people that you're working with. I created a diverse board for the agency that I founded 33 years ago. I started with all Puerto Ricans on our board because we were interested in helping children in the foster care system, the child welfare system. And I realized that New York City is not just about Puerto Ricans. So we needed diverse people on our board, diverse Latinos, then I realized that it's not just Latinos here. Anyway, we now have a very diverse board. We have white, black, we have Latinos, and it's made it so much richer. But the comment that I want, and it's, so I just want to say that I believe in that, but the comment that I wanted to make, it's just to add to what you said in terms of, you said mentoring young women and mentoring other women. You also have to give them the information of the other side of the coin. Not only can you do it, but you also have to say, when you don't do it, there is racism out there. And many times we don't talk about it. So young women need to understand it's not you, it's what's out there. So that you can continue to encourage them to continue to on the path that they want to go, and they don't give up. Because I've been in those situations where I'm the only woman or the only Latina, and I say something and it's ignored, and somebody else says the same thing. Oh, what a wonderful idea. What, didn't I just say that? Oh, my goodness. So anyway, so my point is that it's not just about saying, keep on trying, but when you fail, it's not just about you.
Just to add to that, when you fail, because sometimes we compare them, we're so much into positive, you have to also prepare them for the negative, the failure, and say, okay, so if you fall, what are you going to do? Learn how to pick yourself up. It's not personal. You have to say, okay, what did I learn? Because you really learn when you fail. You really learn to do it better. And it builds character and courage. So you're right, the conversation has to be both.
I just, this is the last thing I want to say, that I've been reading this book called Racial Literacy. It's excellent. I think everybody, black, white, or whatever you are, Latina, you should read it, because it helps us to understand how to negotiate the situations that come up. Because whenever we're in those situations, of course, there's a lot of stress, and we react emotionally, and we're not thinking and how to negotiate that situation so that you get whatever you want. So anyway, by Howard Stevenson, Dr. Howard Stevenson, Racial Literacy. And it's for people who are educators and anybody who is interested in the topic.
Now it's your turn.
Now, Anthony.
Did you have a question?
Now, Anthony.
She's pointing to somebody else.
Oh, okay, no,
It's you. It's you, Anthony.
Didn't you have your hand
Hi. I'd like to say hi. Well, I really have so many things in my mind to say in so little time, but I'm very happy to be here. You know, I was thinking it was more broad, the subject, but just about a woman was enough to learn. I'm happy to say that the promotion that maybe, I don't know if maybe her, but there are other agencies that can, with maybe with one email sent to many businesses, could probably take the advantage of the opportunity of having a diversified board or just employees. I learned here that, or I guess learn or be more aware that all the things that you have mentioned, such as having a real program, because I realize that just a boss that is concerned not necessarily will do it, but a program that is that have details about how it's going to be follow up on everything throughout a year could be more actually diversified in terms of what you want to accomplish. It was something else. It's so many, again, it's so many things, but the fact that another one was that I like to receive maybe an email from the list that the list have my name and an email, and an email that have a summary of facts that say, well, a diversify or a woman a diversify board or a company, what are all the major benefits? I would like to have it because it not only will help the the society, the state, or even Puerto Rico, but also will help me, let's say, if I am looking for a job, somebody that is looking for a job is going to understand, without telling the person that is interviewing him or her, what things could probably he can say indirectly, and maybe they learn, or they they identify with the needs of having a more diversified place, and how that can be beneficial.
Very good.
I'll try.
That's Anthony, my friend. Hi, my name is, hi, ¿cómo está? ¿Cómo está? My name is Betty Lugo, and I'm the president-elect of the Puerto Rican Bar Association. I'm wearing an elected official because I was elected by Puerto Rican lawyers, so I deserve this. I'm also the founder of the first Hispanic woman-owned law firm in New York that started back in 1992. And my business partner and I set up many not-for-profits. The Women's Venture Fund is one of them, 100 Hispanic women. But when it comes to corporate boards, it's super, super hard. And I think even within women, we have issues. Because if you separate and say, okay, racial and ethnic minorities, and within the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, okay, so we're going to put a woman on this board. And nothing against white women, because I'm a white woman too. But what usually happens is, oh yeah, so-and-so, Senator so-and-so is leaving, let me put my daughter on the board. Or so-and-so is leaving, let me put my wife on the board. And they don't look for, I mean, we have enough issues with the Equal Pay Act, but they don't look for women, and women who don't have that silver spoon in their mouth, or have, family members that have made it. And they don't look for racial and ethnic minorities, because even within blacks and Puerto Ricans, it's always men that get the board positions. The women don't get it. It's hard enough, but women don't get it. So what can we do about that? Can we have a committee on diversity and inclusion? I was the co-chair for the New York State Bar. That you can designate and say, listen, we're going to look into this issue with the American Bar Association, because we have the first black female president, Paulette Brown. And the president before that, Fellows, was trying to get the Equal Pay Act passed. But can't we get money from people and say, listen, we're going to do a study. And as part of that study, we show that there's disparity, like the state did, like Mecca, Santana said, and say, listen, you guys have to wake up, because if not, we're coming after you. Like I was sitting down, I was looking at Walmart. Why are we giving Walmart an award? I want to sue Walmart. They treat women so badly, and they have so much turnover. They don't give Hispanic women-owned law firms or minority-owned law firm boards.
Not a member of the business council.
But I think what all of you guys are doing is wonderful. I want to congratulate you and thank you so much for bringing this issue here. And I would be happy, and I'm sure everybody in this room would be happy to help you take it to the next level, because we do need to do it, just like the Equal Pay Act. We got to keep on, punching bags.
I'm sorry, I just want to say, there have been laws like Community Reinvestment Act that are making maybe banks to understand that they need to invest in the communities. There have been laws like affirmative action. But this one could be easier in history, and it's also, if you have the facts that why the diversity. The other one was how much diversity we can go. Not only women, not only Hispanic, not only, what about the diversity in terms of knowledge? What? I'm talking about maybe, it's obvious that a board should have an accountant, lawyer, and something else. So that's another diversity. And it could go on. So anyway, just a politician.
So I was just going to say, and I know we're out of time, but I was going to say two things. Number one, I'm going to go back and repeat what I said before, which is start at the community board level, start at serving on state boards, because the more experience people have, the more attractive they are to corporations. And as corporations are looking for board members, that experience is going to be the thing that they look for. If you set thresholds and you say that you have to have this percent, what happens then is a mechanical response and a perception that the people who fill those seats are not as qualified, and that's not
Right,
true.
you don't want that.
But you don't want that. You want them to say, this is for the bottom line, I have qualified candidates, and we will do better financially if we are more diverse. And it will take time. I mean, honestly, the biggest disappointment, I always assumed that it was an age thing, right? You know, as people get older, as the older people go off of boards, you'll have younger people take charge and they're gonna be more open to diversity. No, look at tech companies. They're all white 25-year-old guys on the boards, you know, with one exception, Sheryl Sandberg. So there's other problems out there. There's a lack of recognition that having those boards, they need older people so that they don't go out and issue too much debt, you know? So there's lots of examples where it's not one thing, it's not age, but if they understand that with a more diverse board, age, race, gender, language understanding, background, if they understand that they're gonna financially perform better, that's how you make it happen. And that's why we're trying to do this, to get that message out there, so.
Balance.
Yes. So with that, I thank you all for